everyone, it is Dr. Michelle, and I wanted to jump on really quick and give you this. You are the totality of your thoughts. As you think it, the word in Proverbs 23:7 says, "So as a man thinketh and think in his heart, so is he." Okay, so I want you to take the time today to think what you're thinking about. And I know that that was a double entendre, and it was a mixture of words there that were basically the same thing. But today I want you to think about what you're thinking. And the reason being is because a lot of times we find ourselves in situations in life and we ask ourselves, how did we get here? And we find ourselves feeling like we made some wrong turns, or we find ourselves not being where we thought we would be at this time in our lives, right? And if we're younger, we find ourselves saying we have to be at a certain place at a certain time in our lives, and sometimes that doesn't work out. Well, one of the things I want to impress upon you, and I really want to get across to you, is that we are the totality of our thoughts. You know, if you look around, and you've heard me say it before, and you look and you don't see the atmosphere or the environment that's conducive to who you are, you got to think about what you've been thinking. See, one of the reasons in life that I could never be somewhere where I didn't belong is because my sole purpose, my mind would go against that thing. My mind would tell me that is not who I am. My mind would tell me that my integrity says different. My mind would tell me that my self-worth says different, that my value of myself, my moral says different. See, a lot of times when you're in life and you find yourself in a certain situation and you're getting angry with people, you're getting angry with God, you're getting angry about the things that you're going through, you got to look back and stop and reflect on the thoughts and the decisions that you made to get yourself in the situation that you're in, right? So we are the totality of what we think. If you think that you can be the president of the United States, then guess what? You could be the president of the United States. If you think you're the best thing walking since sliced bread, guess what? You're the best thing walking since sliced bread. But on the opposite side of it, if you feel like that you are nobody, if you feel like I'm just not worth it, guess what? Then what you have allowed the devil to do is fool you out of who you are and who God calls you to be, and that purpose, that person that God said you are. So that's why you have to go back to the word. That's why you have to instill the word in your heart. That's why you have to meditate on those things that you know to be true about you, that you know to be true about who you are and whose you are. Because the enemy tactic is to come in and deceive you from having anything that God says that you can have. His tactic is to come in and to turn you from the path that God has from you. And how does he do that? He does that through the power of the mind. He does that through the power of thought. You understand? He does that by persuasion, but only through suggestion, because the devil has no power. He can only suggest that you do something to try to persuade that you do something. But believe me, the power is in you, because the greater power dwells inside of you. Greater is he that's inside of you, which is God, than he that is in the world. And if God is for you, then it's more than the world against you. See, I'm just trying to build up that brick by brick, that precept by precept, so that you can understand that you are already victorious, that you are already a winner, that you're already in the position to have everything that you desire to have in life that God has for you, because it's on the inside of you. But it has to begin here. It has to begin here. Because sometimes you ask yourself, you know, you be like, well, this isn't what I had for my life. Well, guess what? The other part of that, the other factor of that is fear. You spend too much time thinking about what it is that you don't want. And so you bring that to yourself. You know, you bring that to yourself. You spend a lot of time saying, I don't want to end up here, that you end up here. I don't want to do this, so you end up doing this. I feel this way about myself, that becomes who you are. So you got to change your mind about how you perceive and how you think about things. Spend more time thinking about where you want to be. How does that line up with where I'm trying to go? How does my thoughts lead me to the place I need to be? What am I thinking about? What am I choosing? What am I thinking about myself? And where am I laying the standard and the basis for those thoughts? You understand what I'm saying? So whatever's in your heart is eventually going to come out. It's almost like the Bible says, whatever's done in the dark is going to come to the light. Because you can't plant a seed in fertile ground. See what I'm saying? And it not come forth. You are fertile ground. You are fertile ground. God created you with a purpose in mind. God created you with a specific purpose, and we all have a purpose. We all have a gift. We all have a talent. We all have a reason for why we're here. So if you abort that mission and you begin to listen to naysayers and you begin to listen to negative thoughts, if you begin to let the devil have his way about who you're not, if you begin to let him fool you and manipulate you and put you on the wrong path, then guess what? You have aborted that mission that God gave you. You have aborted your purpose, and you have wasted the seed and the talent that God gave you. And if you're not doing what God calls you to do, then what are you doing? It's like being connected to the branch, but God having to prune you because that branch isn't producing like it's supposed to be producing. You can't be connected to the branch and not be doing what you're supposed to do, because listen, as a tree is planted by the water, it's anchored. The roots begin to take root and grow and stem from that nourishment the water is giving it, and God is that living water. So you have to be connected. You have to be rooted so that you can be nourished by his word, so that you can get nourishment from the lessons and the teachings that God allow us to give you. Because listen, if you don't change your mind about who you are and change your thoughts, you'll never get to the place that God has for you. God is trying to take your little and give you a lot, but you're fine with him, and you're at odds with him because you feel like God caused all the bad in your life, or God caused this, or God allowed this. Yeah, nothing happens without God allowing it, but you got to begin to take some accountability and understand that if God allowed it, it's for your good. See, God will cause things to happen, allow things to happen to do a redirection for us, to get us back on the right track. See, you want to go left, but God is telling you to go right. So God is going to allow something on that left side to be able to bring you back to the right side. Come on, somebody. But you got to begin with your mind. You got to begin to sit and find a quiet space, guys, that you can hear God. Because if you're always moving, you're always on the run, you're always about this and always about that, how can you hear from God? You understand what I'm saying? You got to be able to sit still so that he can speak to you, so that he can pour into you, so he can change your mind. And then you got to be able to sit down and get the Bible and begin to read. You got to get something that's going to motivate you. Get some type of spiritual direction so that you can understand that God is trying to do a work in you. Because if you look around and you're not happy about anything that you see, then guess what? It's a totality of your thoughts. You can't be more than what you're thinking of. You have to expound your vision. You can't have visions of something that you can't even imagine. That's why it's important to get out and see the world. That's why it's important to expound upon new things and new places and experience things in life so that you can understand that it's bigger than where you're at. See, the world is a large place. It's a vast place full of many things, but the world is so beautiful. It's so beautiful. How can you imagine living outside of a hut if you've never stepped outside of your hut? You understand? How can you imagine having more than life if you don't know life has more to offer? So you have to expound upon what it is that God is trying to pour into you. That means you have to surrender to God, because nobody knows it all. We don't have all the answers, but if you can't see past the little area of life that you're in, and you're looking around and you're not happy with what you have created with your mind, then that means that your mind needs some conditioning. That means that your mind needs some renewing. That means that God has some work to do, and he's allowing people that has wisdom to be able to pour into you. Because the Bible lets us know he calls some apostles and priests, evangelists, ministers, servants. He called us all as to work our part as in one body, so that when the arm moves, the hand knows what to do, and when the shoulder moves, the neck know which way to go. But we all got to be connected to the head, and the head is Jesus Christ. And see, then it'll work like a well-oiled machine. But when we get outside of that will, when we get outside of that body, and we begin to do our own thing, and it becomes selfish, and it becomes all about you, and it becomes what you have envisioned, and then you lose sight of what it is that God has asked you to do. And then your thoughts, they come and they begin to show. Because listen, God is not a man that he should lie. Anything that you sow, it will come up. Those seeds that you put in the earth, they will come back. And sometimes they're not pleasant. Sometimes you got to walk through what you've planted, because a seed that's bearing fruit. And whether it be good or bad fruit, that fruit is going to reveal itself. So ask yourself, what it is that you want to be revealed. What things are you afraid that may come to the light? What things do you hope come to light? But see, you don't even have to worry about that part, because if you go in secret, and prayer, and you pray to God, and you do God's will, God will reward you openly before men. He'll show that you've been diligently seeking his face. He'll show that you've been for him. He'll show the service that you've done. And then as you concentrate on God's will, God will take care of your business. He'll give you the desires of your heart. But you have to change your mind. Renew your mind daily. You have to think about what you're thinking about. You just can't let it go away. And that's almost like driving a car and letting the car drive itself. We're not talking about the electric cars and the technology that we're talking about. Regular cars, and you get in the car and you just let the wheel go. That's dangerous. And that's the same way you need to look at it when it comes to your mind. You can't let your mind wander everywhere. You can't look at everything that's put in front of you. You can't listen to everything that goes in your ear. You can't say everything that comes to thought. You have to monitor your mind, just like you will monitor if you got behind a wheel to drive that for safety. Because if you don't, you're going to wreck yourself. Same thing with your mind. If you don't monitor your mind and your thoughts and your environment, and who you hanging around, and who you let in your private space, and who you're letting influence you, it could be a dangerous thing. Because sin is death. And so if you want to be able to control what happens to you, and I know people be like, well, we don't have no control over this. Yeah, things happen, but you can control your thoughts. You have to begin to practice to control your thoughts. You have to begin to practice what it is that you hear and let in your space. You have to begin to practice what you're looking at and for what purpose. You have to be intentional, because for this next season in life and what we're going through, the way the world is arrayed, the way things going crazy, the way people are killing, the way that politics and everybody manipulative and everything going on. Listen, food, you don't know what you're eating. It's being manufactured in the labs. And when I tell you, you have to be intentional, because you got to give something now. It's going to be an effort to live. You understand what I'm saying? It's going to be an effort to make sure that you're doing the right thing and that you're doing the best you can, because it's not for the lazy. So whatever you got your mind on, whatever you've been thinking about, take a look again. I tell you that all the time. And if it's not you, then you tell the devil he's a liar. This is not what I'm succumbed to. This is not who God said I am. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. This is not my life. You got to begin to tell the devil he's a liar, so that when you rebuke him, he'll flee in the name of Jesus. You got to begin to speak to him. You got to begin to call those things that are not as if they were, and they will be. You got to begin to understand that the life and death are in the power of the tongue, and you have the ability to speak and a command a thing and to be so. But you got to have the faith to believe it. And again, it all goes back around to the mind. So think about what you're thinking about, and then begin to monitor your thoughts. And it may not be easy at first, but it's necessary. Everything you do, that's what people seem to understand. You're going to be accountable for every word that you say before God. You're going to be held accountable for everything that you do. We spend too much time playing and acting like we got all the time in the world and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. No man knows the hour nor the day. So you should be intentional about living, and you should be grateful, and you should have a grateful heart so that God can bless you. The only way your mind can be changed is if you change your mind about how you're viewing things and how you're looking at things, because perspective is 90% of the battle. If you see it a certain way, then that's how you're going to move. So how do you see yourself? How do you see God? How do you see your life? How do you see the things, the decisions that you making? Are they beneficial to where you're trying to get and what you're trying to go? Is it in God's will? Then if you don't know what God's will is, stop and ask God, God, please show me your will for my life. And watch, he'll answer and he'll show up. So that is my motivation and my words of wisdom for you today, to think what you're thinking about. This is Dr. Michelle, and I hope it bless you as much as it blessed me. Peace.